Portugal's highest mountain range, a journey to adventurous rock formations and traditional villages in the Serra Da Estrela, the Star Mountains. This nature park is the largest protected area on the Iberian Peninsula. Portugal's only ski resort is also located here, at an altitude of almost 2,000 meters. In the Star Mountains, sheep play an important role. Their wool has been and still is a precious resource of the Serra Da Estrela. This lamb is not even 24 hours old and has already become an important part of the Serra da Estrela's cycle. At 29, Ana Matos is probably the youngest resident of the mountain range to carry on the tradition of breeding sheep. Ana bought this flock of Bordalera sheep, one of the oldest breeds in Portugal, from a retired shepherd. And that night came the surprise.
I didn't expect that. I let them out into the meadow, and there it was, a little baby. That was great. The first baby of the herd.
It's very young. Everything is new. Where can I get a drink round here? They all look the same here. It's hard to find the right one. I'm on the wrong side and it's not even Mum. The young shepherdess has to help.
I wanted to go to a place where I could practically apply my knowledge of conservation. I wanted a rundown place, like here, where there are bushes everywhere. Forest fires are a big problem, especially for biodiversity. I want to preserve nature here. On the one hand, it's the forests, but also the old ways of living, and that's why the sheep also play a role.
Ana has found what she's been looking for in Folgocinho, high up in the north of the mountains. 80 hectares of land now belong to her. She bought it with her savings. Older farmers still live in the area and teach her the old ways of working. The forestry graduate lives here alone, but has help from friends to build her house. The future living room still needs a proper ceiling before the winter comes.
We have a roof now, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Looks great.
Here, where Anna wants to live, life is rough and hard. I've never been here in winter, but I think the winter will be quite hard. Your project is really interesting in terms of the environment, preserving traditions and culture. The project is not only interesting for her, but for the whole community, and even for the whole country.
It is the unique biodiversity that is close to Anna's heart, even though not everything you see is harmless.
People should come and visit me to see what we do here. They should learn about the ancient knowledge that people have acquired over thousands of years. This knowledge, and of course, modern knowledge. All this should help so that people can integrate with nature and both profit from it.
After the work is done, we try Serra Da Estrela cheese from Anna.
Beer goes well with it. Now all that's missing is the door to your living room. The cheese is really good. Thank you.
Mas aquela ali em pedra vai ficar mesmo gira.
Não, está tudo bem. Eu posso ir à civilização quando quero. Portanto,
I'm not scared here. Everything is good. I have neighbors too. They are good people. And I have my phone if I want to talk to someone. And I have my dog Ursh. She protects me. So everything is good. I feel comfortable here.
Sim.
In the future, Anna would like to offer regional organic products on her farm, such as Serra Da Estrela cheese. Community members, neighbours and friends, all in traditional clothing that protects them from the heat. Here in Videmonte, in the north of the nature park, everyone pitches in. Even their parents and grandparents worked in these fields. In midsummer, it is forbidden to work with agricultural machinery. The danger of forest fires is too high. Today alone it is over 40 degrees, so they use harvesting sickles.
The work is hard, but it used to be even harder. We always threshed the grain in pairs and with sticks. We really appreciate the bread here.
Videmonte is known as the rye village of Portugal. The bread is sold all over the Serra da Estrela.
Here in Videmonte, we've always grown rye. Until I was 17, I lived in Videmonte in one of the oldest houses in the village, and our roof was covered with rye straw.
All generations of friends and neighbours, all of them. Everyone comes together, helps one another to harvest rye and potatoes. People still come to congregate here.
Videmonte is a mountain village, partly still built of granite. The only tradition from the old days that has disappeared are the thatched roofs. Everything else is kept alive here. Tradition is important to the village community, although they lack young people who would carry on the traditions. Manuel Proença bakes bread following an old recipe of his mother's. Rye, together with salt and spring water. Manuel built the oven himself. Everything is made of stone, just like in the old days.
The oven is hot.
Is that enough?
That's enough. The stove should only be warm. Do you know why I like this? Because people are happy when I bake bread. When I sell it at the market, everyone tells me that the bread is wonderful, and that's why.
E eu vou dar às pessoas, quando volto a próxima vez, dizem-me sempre.
Everything that we like to do and that makes people happy brings us the greatest joy.
É o que dá. Tudo o que a gente faz com gosto e que as pessoas fiquem bem servidas é o prazer maior que a gente tem.
His wife, Seu, prefers to work in the fields rather than at the hot stove. But before market days, she helps Manuel bake.
E este pão acaba por não ser o pão do dia, mas sim o pão da semana, porque...
This bread is not a bread for daily consumption. It's a weekly bread. Because when it's still warm, it can't be... It sticks to the knife. That's why it's a weekly bread. People used to keep it in a rye chest. Why? To absorb the moisture.
Para o centeio absorver a umidade.
Demand for the traditional rye bread has increased. It's a stroke of luck for the family.
Eu fiquei desempregado. E depois foi uma
I became unemployed and suddenly it became a source of income and I started to like it. I started doing it and that's what I want to do. I don't want to go back to construction. I don't want to work on construction sites. I had worked in construction since I was 18. I stopped at 50 and it was hard.
E a construção civil era dura.
Vidamonte has less than 500 inhabitants. Only a few kilometers away is the village of Quinta da Taberna. José Neto was born here. In his childhood, there were only 6 families in the village.
Manuel, all this used to be a farm before. Older people have passed away and the younger ones have chosen a different life. And this is what it looks like here today.
The houses are built exclusively of granite stones. UNESCO claims that some of these stones are 100 million years old. This village is now under its protection. The 2 men heard about UNESCO's visit. If José had been there, he would certainly have shown them where the key to his children's bedroom was.
I'm going to unlock the door to see how run down it is.
Won't it collapse? I'm quite heavy.
That was the cupboard. Everything has already been dismantled. Here were the clothes, lots of clothes, blankets. Building these houses was very labor-intensive. There were no bricks. Today you build a house quickly. In the past you had to lay 80-centimetre wide bricks on top of one another, which took a long time. That's why the rooms were so small. But there was a strong family bond. Today there isn't one. Nowadays you're downstairs and the child goes straight to the room to the computer. There's no family bond. Do you understand? That's how it is.
The university town of Covilhã was once the largest wool producer in Europe, an imprint that is still reflected today in modern street art. The identity of the Serra Da Estrela is closely linked to the wool industry. Today, the former wool mills located next to the university house the Museum of Wool Products. Everything is integrated into the teaching. Carolina Loss studied fashion design here. With the help of her professor, Rita Salvado, she combined new knowledge with old for her thesis. This is precisely what the university guides its students to do.
We want to preserve the history of the wool industry, which was very important here in the town of Covilhã and the whole Serra Da Estrela region. And this industry is still an important one today, an engine for the development of society today.
Downstairs in the museum, they're working on the future. They have developed a jacket that has a very special function. It protects workers who are responsible for the maintenance of television and mobile phone antennas from strong electromagnetic radiation.
There are threads that are electrical conductors and normal threads that insulate. People confuse them, especially since they look the same. The jacket consists of different parts. This one has a hood that is also lined with a conductive fabric, because the head can also be exposed to rays. This is a small LED light that comes on when the recommended value is exceeded. So we use the electromagnetic energy to turn the LED light on or off, depending on how much radiation is in the environment.
This protects and warns at the same time. High technology integrated into wool. It's where tradition meets modernity and becomes timeless.
We always try to connect these areas, which is also the motto of this museum. The threads of the past weave the future.
The idea has already won international awards. There are many early birds in the mountains. Some are already strolling around, some are exploring the surroundings, others are taking their time getting ready. Felipe Martins is a passionate birdwatcher. His favourite place in summer is an old cable car station. It was built in the 1950s. However, it was never in operation. Instead, the station is now home to cliff swallows. Felipe works as a tourist guide. It's his dream job.
It's this beauty here, this peace, this environment. It all makes it easy to fall in love with these mountains. I have been walking here all my life, from swimming in the lagoons to chasing the birds later on. I like it very much, my Serra Da Estrela.
Gosto muito da minha serra.
The cliff swallow may not be the most interesting animal in the mountains or the most colourful, but Felipe thinks it still attracts attention with its fast flight. In search of the best place for bird watching, we head deep into the Serra Da Estrela. Some rock formations bear names from the region. One example is the cheese factory. It looks like Serra Da Estrela cheese stacked on top of each other. The stones were formed by the glaciers of the last ice age. They were covered with sand, and when they melted, they left behind huge, almost smooth granite boulders. Numerous birds circle above it all. Among the more rare ones is the golden eagle. Buzzards are more common. Felipe positions himself between two resting places of the birds of prey.
I try to get them in focus. I try to find it in the telescope. It seems to be a serpent eagle, but it could also be another bird.
In the past, buzzards were seen here more often. The principle of eating and being eaten was still a natural cycle in the mountains.
The shepherds would bring the sheep up here on the mountains, and the animals would sometimes fall off a cliff and die. The shepherds would leave the carcasses for the buzzards and predators. Unfortunately, the latest community rules don't allow it anymore, but there are buzzard feeders all over the country, and so their numbers are increasing.
This is good news for the birdwatcher. He needs to know not only the best places for their passion, but also the best times. Birds of prey are most likely to be seen at midday and in the afternoon.
You have to like it and have a lot of patience, especially since the critters out there don't always wait for us. But it's very beautiful to see the animals and also how they interact with each other in the natural way. It's very special.
The higher the mountains, the more likely it is to see a rare species. Near the many mountain lakes lives a very small, difficult-to-catch animal that is native to these parts.
This is a female mountain lizard. It was most likely never impregnated by a male. It's still very young. Females usually have male bite marks on their abdomen when they have been impregnated. This one doesn't. It's never lost its tail. When lizards lose their tail, they grow it back without a pattern on the back. It's beautiful. It's a very special species here in the mountains, because it is only found here.
The
Serra Da Estrela may not be the highest mountain range, but it is a unique place. Unlike anything I have seen before, I just feel at home in this environment.
Será sempre a minha casa e sempre diferente de qualquer uma outra.
Felipe Martins protects nature in the Serra da Estrela by explaining its uniqueness to tourists. In this way, he wants to preserve what has existed for millions of years.
Tango! Ai, ó, Tango daqui, anda cá. Ai, que tu és muito lindo. Ai, que tu és muito lindo.
Tango is the small version of a shepherd dog. He's 8 months old. And Suzette Motash da Vega's pride and joy.
He's very sweet. Feels very good. You can't let him be around other male dogs.
His sweet looks only work on humans, not other dogs. There can only be one alpha male. Born in Switzerland, she has been breeding the Serra Da Estrela mountain dogs for more than 40 years. This makes her the oldest breeder of the oldest dog breed on the Iberian Peninsula.
The Estrela dog is a very good guard dog. This is because it's a shepherd dog that protects the herd. The shepherds have never trained the dogs or taught them obedience in any way. They simply kept the dogs that were best suited. He's also a good family dog. They obey when I say something, but it depends. You can't say too much, and you can't ask too much. It's like with the children, actually.
As a child, she wanted a whole zoo. Now, at 80, she always looks after at least a dozen dogs. There are short-haired and long-haired breeds. On hot days, they sometimes struggle.
Yes, I like all animals, even the insects. If an insect falls into the swimming pool, I fish it out. I think if I were in the water like that, I'd be happy if someone rescued me, too.
Wenn ich so im Wasser wäre, wäre ich auch froh, wenn mich jemand retten würde.
She's so very sweet. She goes up to the people, and then she sits down and gives them her paw and closes her eyes. That's so wonderful. You always feel needed, and that's good too. I want to say that it also keeps you young and healthy.
She came to the Serra Da Estrela in the early 70s and stayed. She would never have so much space in Switzerland. That's why she doesn't want to go back, even if she sometimes misses it.
Swiss chocolate. And I also have a great fondness for the Swiss Alps. I miss that a little bit. People say that here I'm also in the mountains, but it's not the same. They're very different in Switzerland.
In this glacial valley of the Serra da Estrela lies the town of Mantegas. In the early 19th century, looms rattled here. 10 fabric mills once existed. Most of them are now bankrupt, but times are changing. Mantegas is now a place that brings life to the old craft. This wool factory has been quiet for a long time. Today the machines are in service again. For some years now, in the hinterland of the mountains, the wool craft has been experiencing a renaissance. For former geriatric nurse Dina Almeida, this is vital. She was unemployed before she got her job here.
The work fulfills me. It's a craft I didn't know before. I had heard a lot about it, but it was completely new to me. In this job, you learn something all the time. And it's great that we are now doing what our parents did.
I was a lumberjack, but when a job became available here, I wanted to give it a try. The work is different, easier. In winter we have a roof over our heads here, not out there.
Things are going really well for the factory right now. So good, in fact, that the employees have been working through the past 24 hours. The old machines are running like new, and the phone of Isabel Costa, the boss, doesn't stop ringing.
When the old company went bankrupt, we thought it was likely that all these machines would end up in the scrapyard. We wanted to preserve these cultural assets. So for us, it became not just a business, but a mission. Yes, my mission.
A relentless task. The mission also needs the machines, which are over 100 years old. They come from Switzerland, France or Belgium. Isabel Costa believes that no new industrial machine can achieve this quality. The wool is from Serra Da Estrela. It's called burel. The shepherds already wear cloaks made from it. It doesn't wear out easily.
Our idea was to use the burel, this very traditional Portuguese wool fabric, and give it color and three-dimensionality to enhance the product and the raw material, which is sheep's wool. And that was only possible by design.
They sell the end product to architects and decorators, for example, to hotels. Above all, they want customers who, like them, want to keep tradition alive.
We have to be very crazy, don't we? The moment we start the mission, the dedication becomes a risk. But it's also about transforming our lives into something more useful than buying a Ferrari and driving around the world.
Probably no one here dreams of buying a Ferrari, yet the machines won't ever be left unused again. At the beginning of August, the first traces of high temperatures can already be seen across all the forests of the national park, especially underneath the trees where it is extremely dry. The Portuguese security police are also responsible for protecting the forests and investigating fire cases. A team goes on patrol every day. There are several watchtowers in the Serra Da Estrela. In the peak of summer, they're usually manned by civilians who are hired especially for observation.
Is the forest fire risk high today?
It's high, the highest level. It has been for a few days.
Captain Fernandes is the highest-ranking officer in the group. This time of the year is the most difficult for the officers.
As part of forest protection, we're always in contact with the guards. When they or we see a column of smoke or recognize a suspicious situation, we communicate. We build on the network of watchtowers, because in the towers they have a better perspective as their field of vision is 360 degrees. Our surveillance system includes the watchtowers and the people who are out and about in the region. So, for example, us, the police, then the Forest Fire Brigade and other forces from the surrounding villages. And the whole thing is coordinated by us via a regional command.
Gouveia, a municipality on the northwestern edge of the Serra da Estrela, is the headquarters. Here at the station, the security team organises individual guard posts. Since the risk of forest fires is very high, they have to be experienced.
And Rodriguez, what is the situation in the watchtowers?
In the watchtower in Loriga, we have Nuno Santos. He's been working for us for 3 years and is experienced. In Pedras Lavadas is Dona Rosa, who has 20 years of experience. They know the Serra da Estrela like no one else, and they recognize forest fires relatively quickly.
The last serious fire occurred in 2017, presumably caused by a lightning strike. In the Serra da Estrela, a quarter of the entire area burnt down. Every year, fires ravage forests all over Portugal. Climate change is accelerating the risk. Since then, laws have been passed to better protect the forests. Even with high fines, property owners have to take better care of their land so that there is no dry undergrowth lying around. There has been a fire on a property nearby. The troop is called to investigate the cause. Because the property is well maintained, the fire could not spread very far, says Paulo Cardoso, the fire investigator. The first thing they have to do is find the source of the fire.
Ideally, we already see some indications on the trees. When the fire goes with the wind, it hugs the trees. And through that we can determine in which direction the fire spread. In the other direction, we can find the place where the fire started. If we then find combustible material on the ground, we can precisely circle the spot.
80% of fires are started by humans, and most of them start unintentionally. People who make a campfire or burn garden waste. Arsonists are rare in the area, but in this case it could actually have been intentional.
If we find nothing on the ground, no match, no candle, no incendiary agent, then we assume that the fire was started with a direct flame, for example, with a lighter. So someone lit something and then walked away. And that leads us to the conclusion that arson took place here. At this stage, we don't know who the arsonist might have been, but we know where the fire started in order to determine later who the arsonist was.
A third of Portugal is covered with forests. Due to people leaving the rural areas, arable land is becoming smaller and smaller. This increases the risk of fire. The work is not getting any easier for the Portuguese security police. Children of Portuguese emigrants actually return back to Portugal rather rarely. Antonio Madeira is an exception. He was born in Paris and worked successfully as a management consultant. Nevertheless, he has returned home to the Serra Da Estrela, back to the village of his parents. With his wife Marina, he now makes his own wine. When he talks about his passion, he prefers to do so in French.
I was earning well, but I was not into what I was doing. And so I said to myself, life is too short to spend 40 years or more doing something that doesn't give you any real pleasure apart from money. I needed a little more than that.
Marina Madeira sometimes misses Paris. She worked there as a nurse, and they had many friends there.
Life might be a little easier there, but here we have other things like nature. And although it's exhausting, I like the fact that we preserve these old vines here and that we respect nature.
Tentar preservar este património é também respeito para a natureza.
Only low yields of wine can be produced on the rather poor soils, but this benefits the quality of the wines. The old grape varieties that have been cultivated for centuries in the valley around the Douro River need a lot of care.
I create a bit of air around the grapes to create a favourable microclimate for a healthy ripening process without fungi and diseases.
The Douro region in the north of the nature park is the oldest wine-growing region in Portugal, so viticulture is not a new invention here. Even if it has been rediscovered in recent years, it is now sold to fine dining restaurants.
The Serra Da Estrela protects us in the east from the continental winds from Spain, the very hot continental winds. It's a barrier against these winds, and also the fact that we are at a certain altitude. On average, we are 500 meters above sea level. All this together gives the wines their very fresh, very fine character.
Antonio discovered his passion for wine in Paris. His first wine cellar was a garage. Now he owns a brand new hall with large steel containers and oak barrels. It has been a long process for the couple to get here. With wine you learn patience, they say.
Sometimes this project is almost like having a child. We spend a lot of time here. It's a lot of work. We put a lot of ourselves into this.
So for us, it's about staying as close as possible to the real thing, expressing the real thing in a glass of wine. It gives meaning to what we do. It makes us happy. Much more than a check. The check is necessary to live, but it's not the purpose. It's not enough. In any case, it represents not being happy in our sense of the word.
And somehow Paris is very close. The French also appreciate the Dao wine from the nature park. Piódão is located at the foot of the national park. This tranquil place is one of the oldest mountain villages in Portugal. It was first mentioned in the history books in the 15th century. Its landmark is the slate stone. All the buildings are made of it. The teacher, Ricardo Pacheco, also lives in one of these houses. He was born here.
Slate was the material that was naturally present here. It was torn out exactly where the house was built. This created a level, and then the walls of the houses were built from slate.
The entire village is now a listed historical monument. Today it is almost impossible to imagine that Piódão has a dark past. But its inaccessible location attracted those escaping justice. Ricardo Pacheco doesn't like these stories very much. It reflects badly on Piódão, but he knows them anyway.
Diogo Lopes Pacheco was one of the three men blamed for the murder of Inés de Castro, the mistress of the Portuguese king Dom Pedro. Lopes fled to Spain, where he was tracked down and was to be captured. He learned of this and escaped to Portugal. Here he is said to have hidden in an inhospitable, hard-to-reach place at the foot of the Açores Mountains.
Perhaps that's why the residents have painted all their doors and windows blue as a precaution, for protection against evil spirits. The colour is considered sacred. The patron saint of the country, the Virgin Mary, also wears a blue cloak. Ricardo goes even further and wears blue exclusively. He is one of only 55 inhabitants left.
When I was born, there were many more people living here, but there was no tourism. When I was 4 or 5 years old, there wasn't even a road leading up here. You could only reach the village by dirt roads. I remember that the first road was opened only in 1970.
Since then, the village has been anything but isolated. More tourists than residents populate the streets. Piódão is distinguished as one of the most beautiful medieval villages in Portugal.
If it sounds good, the cheese is good. If it doesn't sound good, the cheeses are not yet fully matured and need more time.
Dona Natalia is the cheesemaker of the Serra Da Estrela. It has been made here for several generations in her own cheese dairy, following a family recipe.
I've been making cheese for so many years. I couldn't live without making cheese. I like what I do. That's how I was brought up. There's a lot of love here.
The special feature of their cheese is its buttery consistency. It is the mixture of maturing over time, good milk and fermentation. For the milk to thicken, she uses a traditional remedy.
These are the flowers of the thistle. They go into the Serra Da Estrela cheese. We use them to thicken it. We've always used them. My mother and my grandmother used them. If it's good, I eat it without bread. It's a treat. Once you start, you don't stop.
By the end of July, she has almost finished working on the cheese. Her husband, Luis, takes care of the sheep.
The snack is for my husband. He's in the mountains with the sheep. He's been in the mountains for 1.5 months now. But before, he was sometimes away for 4 months, alone or with other shepherds who are also in the mountains.
In midsummer, the sheep can't find much to eat in the valley. That is why the shepherd drives them into the mountains. There they find heather, juniper, and bristly grass. The sheep like that. There are plenty of them at the Torre, the highest point of the mountains. The first meeting in more than a week.
Matar a fome. Beijinho.
We haven't seen each other for more than 8 days and we miss each other. This is the loneliness of the mountains.
His father also had sheep. His mother made cheese, and so did mine. And so the love arose, a love affair between neighborhood children.
She was 14 years old. Follow me.
This is the shepherd's living room. The piled-up stones also serve as a refrigerator or wardrobe. Life out here is addictive, says the 60-year-old.
The sheep like the way I do it. The day we came here, it was 3 o'clock in the morning when I opened the barn and they already knew where I wanted them to go. They don't need a shepherd. They already know. There comes a time when they have to leave, just like us.
His 5 mountain dogs accompany him on this journey.
Tem nada, olha, empresta uma navalha.
Já é bom.
Look, the cheese. This one. This one is real cheese from the mountains. It's my little milk sheep, Churra Mondegueiras. That's the name of the breed. It's a relative of the Bordelera.
One breed gives the best milk. The other one is best for wool in these mountains. They are as unique as the dogs here.
To herd the sheep, the stables are the best. There are many good breeds of dogs, but a mountain dog, if trained from a young age, is the best. I have raised and trained these dogs before. My life has been dedicated to that. I train them that if you approach me and I say something, the dog would turn to you and defend me. Bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
See you next week.
Until next time, my dear. I won't see her again for a week.
At some point, it's time to say goodbye.
The loneliness, especially in the evening. During the day you sew, you're busy, but in the evening there's more loneliness and the longing to have dinner together. It's more that you wait for him to come home at this hour. You know he's not coming because he's in the mountains. All that is missing in everyday life.
In mid-September, Luis and his sheep head back down into the valley. This is the tradition of the Serra Da Estrela.